can.
Okay.
Let me tell you, it's been a while. My mind is not as sharp as it used to be. I did have a good memory on things that happened in the past, but my memory is not as
Uh,
great anymore.
Okay. Well,
So
whatever you
I'll do
remember.
the best I can.
Excellent. And just to have you on here, you is good enough. so, so let me just do this opening statement. This opening establishes the release and your permission to use your likeness, image, and video, audio recording. We hereby give your consent to B-Story Pictures or any subsequent or subsidiary companies that houses the East Hammond, the Village Grapevine. That's the name of this project. Further, you acknowledge that you give us for gratis, irrevocable worldwide rights in perpetuity, regardless of whether these materials are used for advertising, promotion, education, publicity, or any other purpose on behalf of the company. The acquired digital files, which is what this is, will remain the property of B-Story Pictures, its subsidiaries, or agents. Finally, you waive all rights, claims, and damages. The exploitation of all recordings and oral history is required for the purposes of education, history, and to uplift the city of East Hammond and its residents. You attest that you fully understand the aforementioned. Do you agree? So you just say yes or no, if you agree to what I just said.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I want to start off with just saying, you just say your name, your age, and what street you grew up on in Hammond.
My name is Carnice Upshaw. I grew up on Ames Street in East Hammond. In fact, I live right across the street.
From where you are now.
Then
Okay.
where? Yes, I graduated from high school when I lived on across the street. Yes.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 78 years old.
78. Okay. And in your house, tell me who was in your house at the time.
Well, I got married June 23rd.
Well, no, when you were growing up, let's go before you got married. So your mom and dad and
My
stuff.
mom and dad.
And say who they are.
Jewel Alexander was my father. Virgie Alexander was my mother. I grew up,
Did you have brothers and sisters?
my sister was Yvonne Alexander. My brother was Jewel Alexander Jr. He passed away a few years ago.
Okay. And so Jewel Alexander Sr., did he grow up here or did he come from the South or somewhere?
Jewel Sr. was born in Stanton, Tennessee, a few miles away from Nashville, Tennessee. And he attended school there. He had 2 years of college in Tennessee studying agriculture. Because of the financial issue, he was unable to complete his college education. He moved from Tennessee to Hammond, Indiana, where he found housing on Cleveland Street. The house was built by my great uncle, G.E. Harwell, who provided housing for family members that migrated from Stanton to Hammond. My uncle Harwell never lived in the house, but he provided housing for his family members, and that's where my father was a resident of the housing on Cleveland Street for some years.
So that was important to your his father to also to buy a house and to just bring people from the South to just live
He
there?
built the house.
Oh, he built it.
On 1031 Cleveland Street, right next to the McClendons. My uncle built the house. There were 2 floors to the house, and provided housing for other family members that migrated from Stanton, Tennessee, who migrated to find work. Once they moved here, they would have housing when they found work. And then as time went on, they moved around. They lived in other places, and some of them were able to purchase homes later in life. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it was kind of an important issue to bring people here and then give them a
I'm a product of that family that
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Tennessee and later my father moved me to Hammond, Indiana.
Okay.
Where my father found work at Pullman Standard in Hammond.
Okay. What did he do at Pullman Standard? What was his job?
He worked on rail cars. He worked on rail cars. The site still remained, but they've torn down. As I was a little girl, seeing as we passed by the site where my father used to live, he worked on railroad cars. There's not a lot told to me as to how the rail cars were built. My knowledge wasn't that much about knowing what he did. All I really know is that he worked on railroad cars on that site. There was little money to be made, but there were jobs. That's where my father retired from. Pullman Standard freight cars, railroad cars.
Okay. So when did he started to get into the political thing? Like, people that I've talked to list certain people like Pearline Jenkins and Reverend Burns, and everyone always says Jewel Alexander. So what was some of the things that he did?
My father was always active in civil things and the rights of black people. He was, firstly, as I remember as a child, he was active in the rights of the black people, and he was very active in the NAACP. And I'm not sure if he held an office, but I know he had a voice there. As time went on, when Martin Luther King came on the scene, Martin Luther King was always in the news. That struck a light in my father's heart. He listened to everything that Martin Luther King, when he came to Chicago, he would listen intently to everything he had to say. And the march on, I'm not going to say the March on Washington, But there was a march there where Martin Luther King gave a very important speech. And my father anxiously prepared to go there to hear. There were thousands and thousands of people. I saw it on the television. I had small children at the time, so I wasn't able to go, but I heard the Martin Luther King speech, the I Had a Dream speech. I heard that on the television the day that he was in Chicago, and where there were thousands and thousands of people that were there. And that just more inspired my father to be more politically active in the fight for freedom, which he was involved until his death.
Do you remember anything in Hammond that Jewel kind of helped get going or kick-started? None of that?
I'm trying to think. Nothing that comes to mind at this time.
Okay.
That I remember that he started. He was very involved, I do know that, and whatever issues that came up, he was very involved and diligently worked to eradicate a lot of the issues that were going on. There were so many issues
Hold on a second, let me stop
going
this.
on at that time.
Hey, Dad, I'm doing an interview right now. What's up? Okay. He just hung up. I'll turn this volume down. So when you was there another house that you live on a corner when you used to babysit us? Was that on Ames Street? Wasn't there another
The
house?
Titanic. The Bowmans, Mr. Tyree Bowman owned that house on the corner of Fields and Howard Street. I lived there for a few years, and until I came, after I was grown, had a child, then I came to Ames Street, but I lived on Field Street. The building was called the Old Titanic Building, I guess because it was sturdy, it housed a lot of people, and that's how it was an old building, and when it came down for redevelopment, I guess that's where they got that name, the Titanic, because it was sturdy, it was an old building, it housed several people at that time.
Okay. Because I remember that because you used to babysit us, and we would come over there. I remember that.
Yeah, Bobby, I remember it too. And I just want you to know it was a joy. I don't know if you were in kindergarten or what, but it was a joy to have you there. You were a joy to me. I remember one day I tried to get you to take a nap, and that was the hardest thing for me. And to this day, I didn't get you to take that nap. I said, Bobby, and you were always a good child. You were always mannerable. You were just a very polite young man, quiet, soft-spoken, and you were there a half a day after kindergarten until your mom came home from work and picked up you and Rosie.
Oh yeah, and those are fun times too. And I remember the storms. Sometimes it would be storming out there. Get away from the
Yeah.
window.
Yes. Yes.
So I know one of the things that brings back memories from Hammond is that there was not just the storms, but the trains. The trains.
Train.
I just love to listen to the trains at night. It helps me sleep.
Yes. Yes. There was a lot of trains during the night, and they were just all over. And now they made those where the railroad tracks used to be. They're bike paths now, and places where you can walk, take exercises. I don't know how well used they are, but they are there,
Mm, mm.
and that's a good thing.
So at what point did you get married and have Jill?
I got married June 23rd, 1957. Like I say, my memory is not as good as it used to be. Through the years, things happen to people. You get sick, you know. Your
Right.
body is not as strong as it used to be. But Jill was born in October of 1960. I do remember that. I
Mm.
was married to Joe Smith during the 50s, and we had a good life. He was a great provider. I will say that. He became ill, and then in 1988 he passed away.
Mm.
We had a good life,
Mm.
considering.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's funny that it's even though we're all it's friends, but it's family. And because I look at you as family, and that's kind of Hammond back in those time periods. It had a sense of they say it takes a village to raise a child,
Hmm.
and it just has that feeling of that. I mean, did you experience that when you were growing up here, that village family thing?
Yes, because it seemed to me that everybody most older people were watchful of the younger people, like me growing up. Especially, we got received our foundation in the church from the beginning, where families, parents came together at church, and the values were instilled in us at that time, because the older, if growing up as I was, if you did something that wasn't right, all the old people had to do was look at you and shake that finger at you, and whatever you were doing, you would straighten up right away. You get yourself back together, whatever. The giggling and talking in church was not permitted. We were raised by Christian people, strong. If our parents weren't inside, there were other people there to keep a rightful watch over us, to make sure we were in line at different times.
Yeah, no, it's now. What church did you go to?
I was baptized at Mount Zion Baptist Church around the corner from me, and remained a member after my husband Joe passed away. 7 years later, I remarried a minister, Reverend Clifford Upshaw. And I was married to him, and he lived like 5 years later before he passed. And after he passed away, I came back to Mount Zion in the early 2000s. I can't remember what year I came back to Mount Zion, and I've been there ever since.
Okay. So church was always a part of your life. Oh,
Always very strong foundation, and it remains so as today.
okay. So in your, did you said you went to Hammond High?
I went to Hammond Tech.
Oh, you went to Hammond Tech.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me around that time when you were going to Hammond Tech, who were some of your running buddies? Who did you hang out with? Remember any of those people?
Let me see. My sister-in-law was one, Ella Smith. She wasn't married at that time. And there was a girl that belonged to Church of God in Christ. Her name was Mamie Brooks. And she didn't go to my school, but Julia Cross was one of my very good friends.
Okay, Julia Cross. That's Irv Cross' sister?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She was, we were very, very good friends growing up as young people. In fact, a few of the Cross girls were my buddies, you know. And then as time went on, we grew up, they got married, and they went on with their lives.
Okay. So, did you, when you were growing up during those years, actually, when you were a baby, you grew up in the in the 30s or 40s? Oh no, the 40s.
I was born in 1938. I went to kindergarten at Wallace School. After I came from Tennessee, I was enrolled in Wallace School, and I went to Maywood School, and from there I went to Hammond Tech. And I can't remember if Robbie was at Hammond Tech or Hammond High. I can't.
Robbie Smith, I think she went to Tech.
Okay.
Her and my mom went to Tech.
Yeah.
And just like you went all the way to
Tech. Yes. You went to Tech?
No, I didn't. Just like Robbie, my mom's sister, and mom went to.
Yeah, Lavere was a cheerleader at Hammond Tech.
Oh, okay.
She was.
You didn't tell me that.
She was. She'll tell you when she gets.
Okay, I'll have to ask her about that.
Yeah.
And I know you guys all ran together.
Yeah, we all ran in the same crowd.
So that was more of a technical school, so with business or trade and stuff.
If you didn't go to college, or if you didn't have the funds, or if there were other things to be learned, sewing, cooking, and things of that nature, home mechanics, how to fix things if you're a single mom and something breaks down. The home mechanics teaching allowed you to do things without calling a repairman, because certain things you could learn how to do on your own, you know.
So do you think that now that I know Tech is not here anymore, I think it's an educational center or something.
Yes, there is an education. I don't know about what they do there now.
So did you experience any, because you were in the you know, born in the 30s, and you grew up in, like, say, the 40s and maybe 50s. Did you experience any, say, racism, or was everything kind of smooth back then?
Yes, We did. We kind of just didn't it didn't penetrate. We didn't allow it to penetrate. But we did experience it growing up, and it was a part of growing up, of what we do, you know. I never had an issue with any other with white people, you know. I did have a white girlfriend at Tech, whom she and I became a Polish girl, very close during our high school years. And as time went on, we just kind of separated. And you did, and I'm speaking from my experience, you didn't feel comfortable because after I graduated high school, they would send me announcements letting me know about class reunions. I never felt comfortable, so I never attended the class reunion. And they would have weekend, what they would call sock hops, like little dances on the weekend, Friday nights, where the whites and the blacks, some of them came together and just danced and had little socials. I never felt comfortable in attending them as well.
Why did you feel comfortable? Was it just
the fact that that's the way I felt. Now maybe some of the others didn't feel that way, but I just felt like isolated in some respect, that I wouldn't feel comfortable in being there. Now it's different because I had a real good, after I was grown and got a job at the clerk's office in Hammond, we became real good friends. She was a Mexican woman, and I don't feel that way now. But at my younger age, I did feel very uncomfortable being around them because they would be with their group, and the things they had in common, they could speak freely to them, to those issues. But I didn't feel comfortable.
So because you're black, it wasn't open that you can say whatever you wanted.
Right.
And so at the time, was it in your high school? Was it predominantly white, and then there was a few black people?
There was a few black people, and most everybody was white. Most everybody was white. And everybody treated you casually, you know, to make you feel comfortable. But I'm speaking as an individual. I felt isolated, you know, to a certain degree. My kids, as time went on, they were different, you know. They were fine. They didn't, but Jill never had she never had a best white friend. She never had a best white friend. She just mingled with everybody, but most of her friends were black as well.
Okay. All right. So outside of school, how was Hammond in terms of racism? Was it just all a great community? And did you suffer any kind of prejudice or racist stuff outside of like East Hammond? Did you travel like Chicago or any areas that you experienced anything, or was everything pretty cool after school?
After school, everything was pretty good.
Okay.
Yes. Because, see, once school is over, you came back home to your people, and you could be comfortable around your people.
Right.
I didn't feel that way growing up in school. But I got along with everybody. Levere was outstanding in that way because there was a little restaurant across from the school they called the Chat and Chew. And she mingled with those people. She was good. And they would call her, what did they call her? She wasn't married. They didn't call her Marty, but she was accepted by everybody on the lunch hour. If we would want to go over there across the street to the Chat and Chew, the place was small and it would be crowded, and they would all accept Levere for who she was. She was her own self, She, in some ways, stood out among the crowds of people, And she was always, as far as I can remember, accepted, for her. So maybe I didn't put myself out there that much, but I wasn't comfortable in that realm, I wasn't comfortable. So.
Yeah, because I know my mom went on to work for Judge Tadola over at.
I remember. I remember he did. She did.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I guess that was, that was in white world, so to speak, because it was in the court system, and most of those people were white in the court. But around Hammond in the community, do you remember like the watermelon truck or
the watermelon truck? People with watermelon loaded on the truck driving around selling watermelons. I didn't remember that.
Oh yeah, they came on Conkey Street. Did you remember the mosquito truck? They went down.
I remember they would spray.
Right.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, and they go down the alleys.
Yes.
For some reason, the kids, thought it was fun to just follow them in all the smoke.
I saw them do it too.
We didn't even know that we were getting sprayed with all these chemicals. Oh, so
I remember that vividly. Yes, I do.
Any other fun things that you remember around the community that people did?
I love to go to Brooks' house. That was after school. There was a library. The librarian, Mrs. Barnett, she was awesome. She was wonderful. She would give you, tell you different good books to read, and the library was well used at Brooks' house. It was housed, the library was housed in Brooks' house. But aside from that, there was ping pong. People went after school in the evenings, and knitting and if you wanted to learn how to knit or crochet, there was that. And that I thought was good. That kind of offsets the different things that was going on in the world that we weren't aware of. It gave you an opportunity to kind of relax and not think about whatever else was going on that wasn't good. It just gave you a chance to kind of clear your mind for a few hours.
Okay.
And that was a good thing. And they had cooking classes for young people that wanted to learn how to bake and how to cook, they had that. Brooks House was a good thing at that time, and it was well used by the people. They had a twin building in East Chicago called Catherine House, and that's over there now. I'm told it's still there, and someone has mentioned that it still has some activities going on there, but when redevelopment came, that's when Brooks House was torn down, and that's where you see the houses on Conkey Street now exists where Brooks House used to be.
So, what's your impressions of in the heyday of Conkey Street? Because that was supposed to be like a
Conkey Street was not a good street at that time. There was fighting, shooting, people getting drunk, and stabbings. You know, Conkey Street, and a lot of people lived there because that was their homes. But now doing the renovation, Conkey Street is a whole different place. It's not the same Conkey Street that it used to be.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Okay.
Because my parents did not like I had a friend, she's passed away now, that lived on Conkey Street. And we were always visiting back and forth. And my parents did not like the idea that I was going on Conkey Street because of the name that it was given, how people, would drink and openly get drunk and yell and scream and curse, But like I said, they've renovated Conkey Street, and it's a whole different street. And when redevelopment came about, you could either, the money that they offered you for your property, you could take it and go somewhere else, or you could rebuild there. And then, as I remember, some people decided they were going to stay where they were and rebuild there. So right now, Conkey Street has a lot of people there that in the past were not there before. So it's a better place. That's my impression of Conkey Street.
Okay. Well, so it's a better place because it got rid of the bars and taverns. And
They had Tony's Tavern where everybody loved to go. I wasn't allowed to go there even after I got married because of the types of people that hung out on Conkey. After work, that's where they would go and relax and drink. And they'd be there for hours,
What do you think about the idea that there's a lot of businesses there, from pool halls to, grocery stores, cleaners, and different things. And then once they came in to refurbish the area, that black entrepreneurship kind of stopped in terms of, because I understood that they were going to put the businesses somewhere else. And it never kind of happened.
And sometimes the businesses never came about, as you said. Yeah, the businesses left because there was the cleaners and there were little grocery stores, and down the street further, I'm remembering, there was a tavern where only white people went to, and there was no sign that said no black people could go because it was an open place, but black people went where black people go.
Right.
And that's that there, and it was on Conkey Street too, and further down by Columbia Avenue, that's where the tavern was, and around the corner on Columbia Avenue there was businesses.
Do you know if people wanted to, even after it's torn down and now it's all homes, but do you think people wanted businesses, people who lived around here, do they want to see the little grocery store, neighborhood stores and markets and stuff? Do they want that?
I kind of think they might have. I'm not sure what they wanted. That's what they did, but I would have thought they would have wanted businesses there, and why they're not there, I have no clue. But when they rebuilt, they were just residential homes there at that time. There were no businesses.
Okay, so do you know other entities or people who rose up to fight for the people, the black people I'm specifically referring to in East Hammond, say besides Jewel, your dad?
There were other people. Mr. Floyd Hayes.
Okay, now who was he?
He died in 1957. He was the treasurer of the church at Mount Zion. He was at Mount Zion for years and years until he got ill and he passed away. And
so he would fight for people.
Yes,
okay.
He was there. And I'm trying to think who else. There were some other people besides my father that was there, but right now their names doesn't come forth.
Okay, so I'll say a couple names, and you tell me if it triggers something, like Pearline Jenkins.
Yeah, Pearline was involved. She was very much involved until she got ill, and of course she passed away a few years back.
Okay, and what about either the McClendons or Reverend Burns or
Reverend Burns, the older Mr.
McClendon?
William
or Bill?
William McClendon, Overton's father.
Oh, the father. Okay.
That's the McClendon I'm speaking about. He was very involved as a child. I honored him because of his stature in the community.
Right.
Yes. He was very involved.
Was there anything that you guys in the really the blacks growing up when you grew up that you guys wanted that you didn't have and you really wanted? And
I ain't never thought about it.
Yeah, you thought about it?
No.
Okay.
That I really wanted that we didn't have. It never came to mind, Bobby, because that's the way life is. It was at that time, and you accepted the things the way things were. That's the way I feel about it.
Okay. So, but you guys had a chance to go downtown and to the I guess the Holman Avenue downtown and shop and the movies and all that. Was there any differences between you guys going or any other people going?
No.
Okay.
There was no different. Paramount on Holman, Parthenon down further on Holman, State Street, the Orpheum. That was the first movie house that closed. It was the Orpheum, and that was it. There was a store where you could buy records. It was called Milliken's on State Street. Department store minus and place. There was no place that you couldn't go because of your race.
Okay.
You know, you could go, but let me back up. War wars. When the fight started with, like, you couldn't come in and sit down and eat at the counters.
Oh, okay.
That did happen. But I don't remember any specific incident that took place, because when the marches came and people sat at the counter, it just seems like it happened altogether. Martin Luther King, I don't know what he did. I'm young and I'm not paying that much attention, but seems to me when they organized sit-ins, like it just kind of it just started to snowball, you know. And that's when, and Annie Burns was, I think, one of the first young women that worked at Woolworths and served people that would sit at the counter.
Okay. Oh, she worked there and then she served the black people.
Yes.
Wasn't it strange that if people, and I understand people want to have the right to sit down and eat like everybody else, but
True.
Did you, when they brought food there, wouldn't you think twice about eating it because
and I never experienced that. When black people were allowed to eat at the counters, I assume when they ordered the food, they ate it. I would be hesitant. I would be.
Yeah.
Because it's a frightening situation. You didn't know what the people were going to put in the food.
Right.
You don't know once you got it if you were going to be able to eat it, you know. It's a frightening situation.
Right.
And I would assume that once they were served, they did eat the food. They weren't served, and it just sat there in front of them. I would assume they just wanted the right to be able to, even if they didn't want to go there and eat.
Right.
They wanted that right.
Right. To sit there and even if you ordered it, paid for it, and you just left because you had to.
Exactly.
Okay. So lastly, do you remember any of the first, like I know Ronnie Rowe was one of the first police officers. Do you remember any areas that black people broke ground in Hammond, and they were the first, whatever? Do you know what I mean?
No,
Okay.
first come to mind. Ronnie Rowe was the first. Paul was next, I think. I'm not sure. And
I think Paul Walker was the first, like, sergeant or something like that.
Oh, he might have been.
And I know that in terms of the first teachers or the first lawyers or the first any of that stuff.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Lastly, is there any other stories that make you like maybe glad or proud to be from Hammond? Anything that you can think of and say, you know what, I'm glad I grew up here.
Well, it's something that happened in life, you know, and Hammond is like any other small place, you know. There's not, I pray to God there won't be a lot of violence. There is some over there on Beale Street, going towards the downtown area. But it was quiet here. My street is quiet. A few blocks over, there's a lot of shooting because I read in the paper often. But I'm satisfied. My kids grew up here, and they were all right. You know, there are people in Chicago who pray every day that the kids come home. So once they leave, they come home safely.
Right.
Doesn't happen to all of us, but it happens to some of them, you know. So basically, it was an okay place to be, to grow up. I'm older. I'm sad. As long as things don't change, I'm okay with being here, you know. Jill loved the big city, the bright lights and the busy street. I would never live in California because of the expense. I'll visit, but I would never live in California. It's too much going on there. Where else? Somewhere close by a few years ago that was happening. It's just not where I want to be. I want to be able to live in a place that's safe and that I feel free about going and coming without being worried about if I'm going to get home safe or not, you know. And all in all, I'm satisfied.
Okay.
You got to live somewhere. You got to be able to pay rent or taxes, and thanks be to God, I'm able to do that, and without any problem. So I'm older. I'm not for the fun, the fanfare, the bright lights, and the busy streets. I'm fine here. Stephen is here helping to take care of his mother, and I thank God for him. He would probably like to be somewhere else, but he knows I have a handicap and that he is committed to his mom like you are to yours.
Yes.
As to, you know, making sure she has everything she needs and that she can get through one day to another. And that's about where I am. I'm as the song goes, I'm happy with Jesus alone. And that's the way I feel about my life at this time. And it's no place else I wished I could have been or grew up at, you know. There's not a lot going. There's not a club in Hammond. I don't know if you noticed that. There is no clubs. If you want to go to a club, you got to go to Chicago or where they shoot and kill in Gary on the weekends. There's clubs in Gary. You don't know if you're going to go and get there safely when you leave, and so I'm satisfied with my life as it is.
Right.
Yes.
And it's a nice, quaint town, and it's deep in my heart because I remember running the streets of Hammond, Conkey to my dad's house on 164th, and this and that. It's changed some, so I wouldn't at night just go to the park and all that like I used to. But the people are still warm, and there you know, a number of people that, you know, I still like to come back and see.
Well, it's great to have you come back whenever you can. We're satisfied. We're still here.
That's good.
Yeah.
You guys and Stevie and I have something in common. We take care of our mom. You know, gotta honor their mother and their father.
The doctor told Stephen he takes me to my appointments. There are certain things I pay people to take me to get routine things. And this particular doctor said to me, "You are lucky to have him." I said, "Not lucky, blessed." I said, "God bless me to have him come and take care of his mom, and I appreciate that, and I thank God for that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you do the same thing, and I know it.
Yep.
That's in your heart, Bobby. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I was in Los Angeles, and I just packed up everything and put it in storage. And for 7 years, I've been in San Francisco with Mom. And it's like, okay, what you need, So
That's for sure. And that's a good thing. You feel good about your kids. I know Jill comes, she stays a couple of years, then she goes back. And then she's frustrated because she doesn't have the money that she needs to do whatever. And I'm saying, well, come home and get a job, and you can stay here until you, or just get yourself reorganized. And you don't have to be in Hammond. There are other places that affords you rent, and you don't have to be in Hammond, but you don't have to be paying high rent, and things like that. God has blessed me to be financially able to pay what I owe, and and I'm thankful for that, because I'm old and it doesn't matter anymore. I don't have a $1,200 a month rent to pay, and I thank God for that. But she doesn't see that. Maybe one day she'll realize.
Yeah, we don't need a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, once you get older, you start to, all the plaques and all the stuff that we used to have. It's like, you got the nice living room, you got the kitchen, you got your TV, which both of them were on when I came here, but yeah, so it's the slower lifestyle.
It's a slower lifestyle.
Yeah,
and I don't know nothing there about Facebook. I don't even care about it.
Well, I talk to Jill sometimes on Facebook.
Do you really? Well, that's good.
Yeah. Well, she's part of the Hammond in my heart, so I gotta just communicate. I called her before I did your interview.
Well, she told me. And I'm saying to her, Jill, I'm old. I don't remember nothing. I don't have nothing to say to Bobby.
You said a whole bunch in an hour.
And Jill said, Ma, this is what he's trying to find out. And she went on and on and on.
But I thank you. I thank you for just spending an hour with me. We've been doing it for 1 hour.
Well, you're welcome.
I appreciate it. And I think for the next generations, the kids, Jill's kid, and then when she has a kid, they can come back and they get the information from the library. And 50 years from now, I think it's important to know that we existed and we were here, and you have a voice. And Jewel, your dad was here. He had a voice, and people should know that we existed, and that there was an east side of Hammond, and the black communities kind of bind together to be a family. And that's why we can come back and not be blood relatives, but I can come back and knock on your door and say hi.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about for me.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you. I was hesitant, I have to admit.
But it didn't hurt. This interview didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt at all. I let you know what I remember, which wasn't a lot, but it was something.
Oh, yeah.
And,
but just to have you and your voice and your spirit on this project was important to me, is that because when I originally called you, I was like, well, I don't know what I remember, this, that, and the other. But this hour was good, and I needed it. And I think it's good for you, too. Just to remember some of those things.
It was good.
All the high school and the tech and this, that, and the other, and Mom and all that. So it's all good. So once again, thank you. And I'll let you know when this is all done. And
you are so welcome.
It'll be on the internet. We'll have pull up something on the internet, the transcript, and so you can see, some of our words. And so right now I'm concentrating on 100 people. And so I'll get 100 stories like we did, and it'll all be in volumes in the library.
Gotcha. That sounds good.
Okay.